Manga-Waido.
My name is Kaede Toyama. I live alone in a shabby apartment while working as a contract worker. The reason why I live in this shabby apartment in the first place was because of my mother, who was my only living parent, passed away a few years ago. My mother, who had left a terrible family environment on her own, had nobody to rely on except her husband. Her funeral was held quietly with my mother's friend and myself. I moved out of the house where I lived with my mother and moved to this apartment because I was worried about my income. Forever alone. After crying and crying, the sadness eased for a moment, but the loneliness did not disappear. Crying isn't going to help anything. I decided to get myself together and work hard with the goal of becoming a full-time employee. However,
I'm sorry, but we can't renew your contract.
Suddenly, the company I was working for announced that they were going to let me go.
It's a shame to let a good employee like you go, but we're in the middle of a recession.
I was even more depressed because they were going to offer me a permanent position soon. But it didn't end there. The misfortunes continued to follow. What am I going to do now? I have to find a job first. As I trudged back to my apartment pondering this. What? To my surprise, there was nothing left where my apartment used to be. There were no traces left of the apartment, and char was piled up with smoke billowing out of it. It looks like arson. This apartment was old, so everyone was worried about what would happen if it caught fire. One of the neighbors told me that in a sympathetic tone, but I couldn't think of anything to say. No way! What am I supposed to do now? I lost my job, my house, everything. I don't remember much after that. With nowhere to go, I found myself in my hometown where I had spent my childhood. My mother's gone. I lost my job and my home, but maybe I can start over here. The cost of living is low in the countryside, and although we haven't been in touch, my father's sister, who was very dear to me when I was little, must still live here. Houses in the countryside are big. I'll ask her to let me stay there for a while I think about the future. As I was walking around thinking about that, I saw a figure at the far end of the wide riverbed. As I approached closer, wondering what they were doing in a place like that, it was a boy in a school uniform. The uniform he was wearing was tattered, but they were definitely from a junior high school nearby. I was worried, and as I looked around, the student looked back at me. What are you doing?
Nothing.
It's already dark. You should go home.
I can't go home.
I had plenty of time, so I decided to sit beside him and listen to his story. The boy began telling me what had happened. His parents divorced several years ago, and his mother took him in to live with her and her second marriage partner, but the mother passed away due to illness. He had no choice but to rely on his father-in-law, but not only did his stepfather neglect him, he also spent all of the money from child support on alcohol. He even started to get verbally abusive and violent. He couldn't take it anymore and ran away from home.
I was going to go to my real father's place, but it's so far, and I have to take a train to get there. But I think he even took my wallet. It's getting dark, and I don't know what to do.
It happened unconsciously, but I think I saw myself in him. Here, use this. I want him to be happy because he shares the same pain as me.
What?
With that one thought in mind, I gave him a wallet with all the cash I had on me. It may not be much, but I think you'll at least be able to take a bullet train or something.
But...
Don't worry about me. I have a credit card. You have no idea how much it costs to get to your father's house, do you?
But... I feel bad.
It's okay. Just take it. Hurry! The more trouble you'll get until later it gets. I stood up, thinking the boy would have had a hard time walking away if I stayed there. Well, I guess we'll never see each other again.
I'll pay you back, for sure!
The boy stood up as if determined and disappeared into the town, bowing his head repeatedly. I did a good thing. Good things will surely happen after doing something good. Everything will be fine as long as I get to my aunt's house. With that thought in mind, I reached my aunt's house relying on memory. But I was naive. I found nothing but a vacant lot where my aunt's house used to be. I wandered around the area, hoping I was mistaken, but the area around my aunt's house was just as it was then, with its distinctive signage and the winding streets we used to play on. So there was no way I could have been mistaken. No matter how many times I checked, that empty lot was where my aunt's house used to be. Now, I've really lost everything. It seems like when a person truly reaches their limit, they can't help but laugh. Now I really don't know what to do. I made it back to town in a daze. Oh, that building, it's still there. What caught my eye was the building that housed the first fast food restaurant I worked part-time for. As I got closer, I found the door leading to the rooftop left unlocked. On the rooftop, we would eat lunch together secretly during our breaks, and on firework festivals, we would gather there to watch. Those days were so much fun. I naturally went up the stairs to the rooftop. It's even more desolate than it was back then, but little has changed. The wind feels so nice. I forgot everything and gazed at the barren street in front of the station. Then suddenly,
Wait a minute!
startled by the sudden loud voice, I turned around in a panic when a middle-aged man came running towards me.
You! What are you doing?
What?
Not so fast! And at my building, too!
My building? The man pulled me by the arm and dragged me to the middle of the rooftop.
I saw you climbing the stairs, so I followed you thinking the worst. And I'm glad I did.
I'm sorry, I was just looking at the town though.
What?
I was embarrassed, but I knew I had no choice but to explain. I told him everything that had happened.
Really?
Yes.
I don't think it would be a stretch to jump off under those circumstances, but
Oh no, well, I did think it was a painful situation, but I'm determined to live for my mother. When I involuntarily laughed, the man bowed deeply.
I apologize. I made a terrible mistake.
It's okay.
Anyway, you're very strong.
You think so?
Would you be interested in working for my company?
What? I couldn't believe my ears at the sudden offer. The man's name was Nobuhiko Hatanaka, and he was the president of a construction company in Tokyo. This building was his company's building.
This is my hometown, too. I come back here every once in a while to relax. I started my company in one of the rooms of this building, although the company is now headquartered in Tokyo.
I see.
My company is in need of a new employee because one of our female employees just left for maternity leave. You seem like you have guts, so how about it?
What? Are you sure?
Well, this must be some kind of fate, too.
There was no reason for me to refuse the offer that seemed too good to be true. After that, the president not only offered me a job, but also a company dormitory.
I apologize. It's not the nicest place, but
He said that, but it was much nicer and way more spacious than my old apartment. Thank you so much! I'm going to do my best for this person. That's what I decided. Fortunately, I was placed in a position where I could use my experience from my last job and work relentlessly. Working overtime and getting yelled at by an unpleasant boss set me back at times, but the work itself was rewarding, and above all, I was able to work hard to repay the president of the company. Then, in the blink of an eye, more than a decade passed. Before I knew it, I was in a decent position within the company. I graduated from the company dormitory, and now I live in an apartment in Tokyo, albeit a small one. Although my life was difficult at first, thanks to President Hatanaka, everything had been smooth sailing for the past decade or so. But one day, the president is stepping down? The president suddenly collapsed at home, and it was difficult for him to continue his work. And to make matters worse, the current executive manager was likely to succeed him. The manager was certainly good at his job, but he was a man of intense power harassment and the subject of endless shady rumors behind the scenes. I wasn't a big fan of him either. I can't work hard for that man. On the day the announcement came out that the executive manager would be the next president, I submitted my resignation half-heartedly. I had been unemployed for the first time in over a decade. What was different from those days was that I lived in a beautiful apartment. I also had enough savings. And yet, I was not able to clear the fog in my mind because of the president. I wonder if I can somehow repay him. I didn't have the energy to look for a new job, and I was living a shell of a life doing freelance work. After a year, such days passed. Yes? I looked at the screen and saw a young man I had never seen before standing there.
Are you Kaide Toyama?
Yes.
Thank God! I finally got to meet you! I'm sorry to interrupt.
Who are you?
Do you remember this?
The young man took out an old wallet. Oh, that's... I remember now. It was the wallet I gave to a boy by the river a long time ago. I opened the door.
I always wanted to repay you someday. Now that I'm finally on my own, I looked for you to return the money you gave me. The only clue I had was this wallet, so I hired a detective to find you.
I see.
I'm sorry to have surprised you, but I had no idea that you were working for my father's company.
What? Your father's company? The junior high school student at that time was the son of President Hatanaka. I went to a nearby coffee shop to talk further with the boy from that day who introduced himself as Mamoru Hatanaka. That day, the boy used the money in my wallet to visit his father's address, which his mother had told him about. Although he couldn't see him right away, he was finally able to see him with the help of his relatives.
My father welcomed me warmly. From that point on, I've been following my father's back, training abroad up until recently to follow in his footsteps. After I learned that you were working for my father's company, I asked him about you before we met. My father praised you as a very good employee, He also said he himself and the workplace both got brighter because of you.
No. Tears naturally welled up in my eyes at these words. No matter how hard it gets, there's always someone watching over. I felt that all those hard days since I lost my mother had paid off.
So please, come back to the company and lend us your strength again.
What? But the current president.
Oh, speaking of him, the former executive manager who became president a year ago was officially dismissed and removed from his position after power harassment and embezzlement came to light. It was decided that I would take over the company ahead of schedule.
Really?
I'm still a work in progress, so I'll need the help of many people. And you're one of them.
Me?
That's correct. What do you think? Will you please come back?
What a strange coincidence. I felt like I was being guided by some invisible force. If it's okay.
We want more people like you in our company. People who have compassion for others.
The young man's smile was just like the president's, full of kindness. And so I returned to President Hatanaka's company once again. All the employees who had worked with me gave me a warm welcome. The president survived and is supporting this company behind the scenes as chairman. I look forward to working with you again. I'm more committed to my work than ever before. Someone's watching over me. That's what I believed.